What if I told you someone you trusted could slowly, quietly turn into a predator in human skin? Someone who smiles at you one day and plots your undoing the next? Today, we're uncovering the three terrifying signs that show a narcissist has crossed the line into pure evil, and once you see them, there's no going back. If you've ever felt trapped by someone who seemed normal until their dark side emerged, hit the like button and share this video with someone you trust. Understanding these signs can literally save you from years of trauma. Imagine someone you once thought you knew, someone whose smile felt warm, someone whose concern for you felt genuine. Now imagine that warmth disappearing, replaced by a chilling indifference. This is the first terrifying sign that a narcissist has turned into something far darker, a total loss of empathy. It's not just selective empathy, where they might tune out your feelings because it's inconvenient or because they're focused on themselves. No, this is a level of emotional detachment so severe that your pain, your fear, even your grief becomes irrelevant, or worse, a source of entertainment. They watch suffering and it does not move them. They hear about a crisis and feel nothing. They see someone they once called friend or partner struggle, and instead of offering care, they may smirk, mock, or manipulate. This is the point where you realize you're no longer dealing with someone who is simply self-absorbed. You are witnessing someone who is capable of cruelty without remorse. The loss of empathy transforms them from merely difficult to actively dangerous because it removes the natural brakes on harmful behavior. Humans are wired to have a conscience, to feel guilt, shame, or compassion. When a narcissist's empathy disappears entirely, those brakes vanish. They are no longer held back by moral hesitation or emotional consequence. This is why their actions can escalate from manipulative games into something destructive, targeting not just your heart, but your reputation, your security, even your sense of self. And it's insidious because it often begins subtly. They may start with small dismissals. You're too sensitive, or you're overreacting. Gradually, these comments escalate, and soon they no longer care at all about the impact of their words or actions. What was once a relationship where your feelings mattered now becomes a landscape where only their desires and whims hold weight. Witnessing this loss of empathy is terrifying because it signals a permanent shift. You can no longer appeal to their humanity, their conscience, or their decency because those qualities have been stripped away. At this stage, the person you knew is gone, replaced by someone whose inner world is exclusively self-serving and, in the absence of empathy, capable of doing real, lasting harm. Once a narcissist has lost empathy, their manipulation evolves from subtle control to something far more sinister, deliberate, malicious manipulation. This is no longer about winning an argument or bending someone to their will in everyday situations. This is strategic cruelty designed to destabilize, confuse, and hurt. The hallmark of this behavior is intent. They are no longer acting out of ignorance, insecurity, or a need for attention. They are consciously creating chaos for personal gain or simply for the thrill of exerting power over someone else. You may notice it first in small, seemingly harmless ways, twisting your words, planting seeds of doubt about your memory or judgment, or pitting friends and family against you. At first, these acts feel like minor annoyances, and you might even question your own perceptions. But over time, the pattern emerges. The manipulation becomes relentless, calculated, and precise. They know exactly which buttons to push, which vulnerabilities to exploit, and which fears to awaken. They thrive on your confusion and distress because it feeds their sense of superiority. What makes this particularly terrifying is that it is impossible to reason with them at this stage. Logic, fairness, or moral appeals no longer hold any sway. If you try to confront them, they may twist the truth, gaslight, or even frame you as the instigator. You start to feel like you are walking on a minefield, never knowing when the next trap will explode, never sure if your reactions are even valid. This is intentional. The goal is control through fear, doubt, and disorientation. It's a psychological chess game, and you are the unwitting opponent. Recognizing this sign is critical because once a narcissist descends into malicious manipulation, any engagement with them becomes dangerous. They are no longer simply difficult or self-centered. They have crossed a moral threshold where your pain is not just tolerated, it is leveraged. Every interaction is weaponized, every conversation a potential trap, and every display of vulnerability a target for exploitation. Understanding this is not about fueling paranoia. It's about self-preservation. This awareness allows you to see the pattern for what it is, a conscious, purposeful drive to control and dominate, stripped entirely of ethical or emotional restraint. At this stage, the narcissist is not just hurtful, they are actively dangerous, and the only safety lies in recognizing the manipulation and creating firm boundaries that cannot be breached. The third terrifying sign that a narcissist has crossed into pure evil is the emergence of sadistic enjoyment. This is the point where their cruelty is no longer a means to an end, no longer just manipulation or control. It becomes an end in itself. They derive pleasure from witnessing your pain, from seeing you struggle, from watching your world unravel. And the realization of this can be gut-wrenching. At first, it may appear subtle, almost imperceptible. A fleeting smirk when you are upset, a quiet satisfaction when plans go wrong, or a sense of triumph when your emotions are heightened and raw. But over time, it becomes unmistakable. Their actions are not reactive. They are proactive, designed to inflict discomfort, fear, or humiliation. They revel in the power imbalance, the knowledge that they can influence your reality and emotions at will, and the more you suffer, the stronger their sense of control becomes. What makes this terrifying is that sadistic enjoyment removes any possibility of negotiation or reconciliation. Appeals to reason, empathy, or morality are meaningless because their joy is found precisely in ignoring those things. Every interaction, every conversation, every shared space becomes a theater for their amusement, where your vulnerabilities are the stage and their cruelty is the performance. You may catch yourself questioning your own sanity, feeling as though you are trapped in a nightmare orchestrated by someone you once trusted, because that is exactly what is happening. The narcissist's pleasure in your suffering is deliberate and consuming, and it signals a profound moral collapse. At this stage, they no longer care about the consequences of their actions, the impact on others, or even the sustainability of their relationships. Everything and everyone is expendable if it serves their twisted sense of gratification. Recognizing this is critical not only for your mental and emotional safety, but for your physical well-being. You cannot appeal to decency, reason, or fairness. The only strategy that works is detachment, firm boundaries, and, when possible, complete removal from their sphere of influence. Sadistic enjoyment is the final, unmistakable hallmark of a narcissist who has evolved into something far more dangerous than self-centeredness. It is a predator operating without empathy, morality, or conscience, and the only way to protect yourself is to see clearly, act decisively, and never let them back into your life. The fourth sign that a narcissist has descended into pure evil is relentless retaliation. This is the stage where any perceived slight, real or imagined, becomes a trigger for calculated, enduring punishment. They do not simply react in the moment, they plan, they wait, and they strike when it will hurt the most. Even minor boundary setting or honest feedback can be twisted into an offense that demands vengeance. At this point, the narcissist's focus is no longer on achieving a goal, gaining admiration, or even maintaining control. They are driven by a need to punish, to assert dominance, and to make you feel small, powerless, and fearful. Retaliation can take many forms: spreading false rumors to tarnish your reputation, undermining your relationships, sabotaging your opportunities, or manipulating others to turn against you. The cruelty is methodical, often delayed, and always purposeful. This makes it deeply disorienting because the harm may not appear immediately, leaving you second-guessing yourself and questioning whether the events are intentional. What makes this terrifying is that their sense of justice is warped. In their mind, any deviation from obedience or challenge to their self-image deserves retribution, and there is no limit to how far they will go. They are capable of waiting months, even years, to strike in a way that maximizes impact. You begin to feel trapped because no matter how careful, how polite, or how disengaged you are, their vendetta persists. Understanding this sign is crucial because it demonstrates that a narcissist who has entered this phase operates outside the normal boundaries of morality and decency. Appealing to reason, attempting reconciliation, or hoping for remorse is futile. The only path to safety is awareness, careful boundary enforcement, and, whenever possible, complete disengagement. Relentless retaliation reveals a narcissist who has abandoned even the minimal constraints of conscience, becoming a figure whose primary motivation is the infliction of harm and the assertion of control through fear. Recognizing this allows you to prepare, protect yourself, and prevent further victimization. The fifth terrifying sign that a narcissist has turned into pure evil is exploitation without limits. At this stage, their sense of morality, loyalty, and human decency is entirely absent. No one is off limits, and nothing is sacred. Friends, family, colleagues, even those they once claimed to love or protect, become tools, merely objects to be used for their advantage. Their interactions are entirely transactional, but not in the typical sense of mutually beneficial exchange. Instead, everything is weaponized for personal gain, status, or amusement. They exploit weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and trust with surgical precision. Your successes, failures, resources, and even emotions are fair game, manipulated to serve their self-interest. What makes this so dangerous is that they will exploit the very people who care about them most, those who are least likely to see the betrayal coming. The narcissist's thinking is singular. How can I benefit, control, or dominate without concern for the consequences to others? Boundaries are meaningless, and moral limits are non-existent. They do not consider loyalty, fairness, or ethics. They only see opportunity. This exploitation is often layered and strategic. They might feign support or affection to gain access to something they want, only to discard or betray once they have achieved their goal. Every interaction becomes a mechanism for extraction, and the longer you remain within their orbit, the more you are used and drained. Recognizing this pattern is crucial because it reveals the full extent of the threat. A narcissist who has reached this level is not merely self-centered. They are a predator who actively leverages relationships and trust to serve a singular purpose, themselves. Attempts to reason, appeal to conscience, or negotiate boundaries are met with contempt or simply ignored because their worldview does not include empathy or fairness. Understanding that their exploitation is limitless allows you to see clearly the necessity of detachment, protection, and, when possible, complete disengagement. This is not overreaction, it is survival. Once you recognize that someone is operating without ethical or emotional constraints, the only safety lies in reclaiming your power and refusing to be used in their relentless pursuit of control and self-gratification. The sixth sign that a narcissist has descended into pure evil is domination through fear. By this stage, their aim is no longer just control, manipulation, or personal gain. They seek to maintain power by instilling terror. Fear becomes their tool, their language, and their ultimate measure of success. You may notice it subtly at first, a sharp tone, a cutting remark, or the threat of consequences if you fail to comply with their wishes. Over time, these actions escalate into patterns designed to keep you off balance, constantly anxious, and second-guessing yourself. The narcissist studies your reactions, your insecurities, and your vulnerabilities, and then weaponizes them with precision. Every interaction is calculated to remind you of their power, every disagreement a potential trap, and every misstep a reason to punish. This is not occasional or accidental, it is sustained, relentless, and strategic. The fear they cultivate serves a dual purpose. It reinforces their dominance while simultaneously eroding your ability to resist or assert yourself. You may find yourself walking on eggshells, avoiding certain topics, or censoring your behavior entirely just to minimize conflict or avoid reprisal. This is exactly what they want. The more intimidated you are, the more control they hold. What makes this stage particularly frightening is that it is invisible to outsiders. People may see only a composed exterior, a professional demeanor, or a charming mask, while behind closed doors, fear dictates every move. Recognizing this sign is critical because it demonstrates the extent to which the narcissist will go to maintain power. Reasoning, empathy, or appeals to fairness are meaningless in the face of someone whose primary strategy is terror. The only way to reclaim safety is to acknowledge the pattern, remove yourself from the environment where fear is weaponized, and set boundaries that cannot be crossed. Understanding that domination through fear is a deliberate and conscious strategy allows you to see the narcissist clearly, not as someone merely difficult, but as someone who thrives on control through intimidation and psychological oppression. Once you see this, you can protect yourself before their influence escalates further and becomes even more destructive. The seventh sign that a narcissist has crossed into pure evil is the systematic use of weaponized lies. This is not casual exaggeration or bending the truth to make themselves look better. This is intentional, calculated falsehood designed to harm, manipulate, and control. They lie to reshape reality, to destabilize those around them, and to maintain power over the narrative of their world. At first, it may seem minor, a small distortion, a half-truth, but over time, these lies grow in sophistication and scope, often targeting multiple people simultaneously. Friends, family, colleagues, even strangers can become unwitting participants in their schemes. The goal is always control. By inserting falsehoods, they create confusion, sow doubt, and undermine your credibility. People around you may begin to question your memory, your judgment, even your sanity, because the narcissist's lies are designed to appear convincing, plausible, and consistent. What makes weaponized lying particularly terrifying is the absence of remorse or accountability. They do not correct themselves, apologize, or acknowledge the harm they cause. They double down, escalate, and adapt. Lies become a tool of dominance, a way to manipulate reality so that everyone around them dances to their tune. This strategy also serves to isolate you. As the lies spread, your relationships, your reputation, and your sense of trust are attacked. People begin to doubt you, and you may feel increasingly alone and vulnerable. Recognizing this sign is crucial because it reveals the deliberate and premeditated nature of their cruelty. You are no longer dealing with simple dishonesty or poor communication. You are witnessing a conscious effort to control and harm through deceit. Once weaponized lying is in play, traditional approaches, reasoning, confrontation, or attempts to clear the air are futile. The narcissist thrives in chaos and confusion, and the more they can distort reality, the stronger their grip. Understanding that lies are being used as weapons allows you to step back, protect yourself, and disengage before their manipulations inflict irreversible damage. The presence of this behavior signals a dangerous stage in their evolution, one where truth and trust have no power, and only careful awareness and boundaries can preserve your safety. The eighth and final sign that a narcissist has crossed into pure evil is moral corruption. This is the stage where conscience, ethics, and basic human decency are completely absent. They no longer operate within any moral framework. Decisions are made purely through the lens of self-interest, power, and gratification, regardless of the consequences for others. At this point, the boundaries between right and wrong are irrelevant to them. Actions that would horrify most people, betrayal, exploitation, manipulation, or even deliberate cruelty, are not only acceptable to them, but are often celebrated as clever strategies or sources of personal advantage. Moral corruption transforms the narcissist into someone who is fundamentally dangerous because nothing restrains them. Empathy has been stripped away, lies are weaponized without hesitation, and fear and manipulation become tools to dominate and control. What is particularly insidious about this stage is how unrecognizable they become to those who once knew them. Someone you trusted, loved, or depended on is now unmoored from the norms and ethics that govern human behavior. They operate as if consequences for others do not exist, and in their mind, only their desires, pleasures, and self-preservation matter. You may witness them deceive, harm, or exploit with ease and without remorse, often rationalizing or justifying their actions in ways that seem incomprehensible. Recognizing moral corruption is critical because it marks the point where engagement with them becomes inherently unsafe. Appeals to reason, morality, or fairness are meaningless. They are operating in a world defined only by their own self-interest. Understanding this sign allows you to see the narcissist clearly for who they are, a person whose inner compass has been completely eroded, whose actions are dictated solely by power, control, and self-gratification, and whose presence is toxic at every level. At this stage, the only path to safety, sanity, and recovery is clear recognition, firm boundaries, and complete disengagement. Moral corruption is not just a warning, it is the final signal that the person you once knew is gone, replaced by someone capable of harm without remorse, making detachment the only viable strategy for survival.